So, SGP rounds 3 and 4 are in the books. Manchester delivered the entertainment, but what are your thoughts? And what are the thoughts of Kelvin Tatum, of course, who we're back with for another episode of Tatum Talks. A big weekend. Now, first of all, just want to say this. I always forget to say this, but apparently you're supposed to on social media, Kelv. You've got to tell people to like and subscribe, and then they will do as they're told. So, like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you're watching this on. So, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, or you're listening to the audio version as well, then please do follow it, because that helps you not miss any future things, and also actually it helps share this out to other people who might be Speedway fans. There we go, there's the science bit out of the way. But thanks for all your comments and reaction from the previous episode with Mark Lemon as well. It was great to chat with Lemo before the meeting. We're now talking after 2 great days of Speedway in Manchester, and the action on the track certainly delivered its moments right from the off, Kelv, including in the GP sprint. A few surprises as well. Tom Brannan getting to that SGP sprint final. Schmarschlick going out in the first round. There was no shortage of drama right from the first track action.
No, and it was a terrific start to the weekend for Tom Brannan. We'll discuss Tom Brannan a little bit later on, but making the sprint race on Friday afternoon, it was that was really an encouraging sign for him. Obviously, you know, we'll leapfrog straight to the winner with Jack Holder, because Holder actually had a wonderful afternoon in qualifying, because he knocked out the top 2 in the world, Schmarschlick, and then followed up by Verina. Somebody told me very vociferously that it's not Verina, it's Verina. I'm going to struggle to remember that. But Casper, he dropped out. But Jack Holder was just in sparkling form, and then went on to make the rostrum as well. So, yeah, certainly it was a day that started with Schmarschlick. That was always going to be a bit of a needle match between Holder and Schmarschlick in their first head-to-head in Q1. Because I think Holder feels a little bit aggrieved about being moved out of Lublin. I don't know the politics of it, but I just read body language, and it would suggest to me that Martin Vasilik coming out of Stargorzhov, going to Lublin, and Holder going the other way. Holder has been fabulous for Gorzhov so far. It certainly motivated him. There's no doubt about that. But
there definitely seems to be a needle between the two of them, doesn't there? When they are out having a battle, we know that Brady and Schmarschlick are going to go at it. But when you see particularly Holder versus Schmarschlick in those qualifying heats, they do seem to be, you know, they're looking over each other's shoulder. And Schmarschlick looked over at Holder as he crossed the finish line as well, didn't he? I think in one of the heats on Friday night too.
Yeah, I think words have been exchanged, and there's no question there could be some bad feeling there, and a sense that whether there's been a direct fallout, possibly, but yeah, when you look at those sort of actions speaking louder than words, Schmarschlick having a long stare at Holder as he comes over the line when he stole the win away in his first ride. I think that tells you quite a lot how they're feeling about one another. But yeah, the sprint race was a strong start to the weekend, and as I say, it sort of mixed it up quite nicely. Brady Kurtz touching the tapes at that time was quite dramatic, you know, think, you can afford to throw points away, and, you know, to me, and everybody getting quite excited about all of that, and he was perfectly open about that, you know. Subsequently he just said, you know, pilot error, made a mistake, you know, it can happen, but nonetheless he picked up a valuable point, and off we went. We were up and running in Bellevue.
And then to the meeting itself, took a couple of heats to get going, but then it burst into life, didn't it? Heat 3, Heat 4, and we were in business then.
Yeah, you know, like the racing was on Friday night. It didn't take long, as you say, in the first block of races. It was literally, you know, it's always the first couple of races with water on, which is right at that early stage. It's going to be round the inside. It's pretty much going to be follow my leader. But then all of a sudden, you get riders just beginning to utilise those big, wide open spaces at the National Speedway Stadium. And as we've come to expect, you know, the racing, it just it burst into life, and, you know, it's got people on the edge of their seats. And that's what that place is all about. So yeah, really, really good start.
Max Frick started with a 0, but then after that went through the card effectively, didn't he? And first time that he's been on top of the podium now for 4 years. A fantastic night. Well, fantastic weekend really, but a fantastic night for Australian Speedway, because that's only the second time we've had an single nation locking out that podium, and the first time Australia have done it. Poland are the only other team or the only other country to have taken over the whole podium in Grand Prix history. But for Max Frick standing on the top step at his former home track, a proud moment for him.
Yeah, it was, and like a surprise winner. He's had a poor start to the season. He hasn't been going particularly well in Poland either. And talking to the team, talking to Thomas Kosinski, his manager, they couldn't really put their finger on what was going on. Max was a bit confused. And interestingly, Mark Courtney was in his camp at the weekend, who has been living and working in Poland for some considerable time now. And after the first race, this is quite significant. After the first race, they were either going to change the setup on the bike drastically, or they were going to actually go to his spare bike. And Mark walked in and said, "There's nothing wrong with the bike. You need to continue to ride it." And that's what they did. And it was quite interesting. And I think sometimes they go down the wrong road and they lose themselves. But subsequently, the track conditions, he rode it beautifully. Frick, all of a sudden, that real graceful style he has, where he can do I think we said it in commentary, it was like Bewley can. He can carry carry the speed through the corners, wheels in line. And there was a bit of dirt on it, which was nice to see, a track with some dirt on it. And yeah, he reminded everybody how good he can be. I think he just needs to be more consistent, and there's no reason he can't be. Just needs to believe he can be. But yeah, a fine win. The Australian lockout. Kurtz coming through second. Another big night for him when he wasn't quite at his best. And Jack Holder ended up on third place, and a really good day for Jack. And of course, I'm sure all the fans down under were having a couple of drinks at breakfast time because in celebration, because it was a terrific result, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic for Australian Speedway, and we'll hear from Brady Kurtz shortly, but he touches on this as well. The three of them standing on that podium have stood on many podiums together in the past 10, 15 years or so, coming through the ranks. They've all been in the junior ranks together, battling it out in the 125cc's and the 250s and maybe earlier than that as well. And so to all the three of them be there, and I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a photo that Neil Middleditch he regularly puts on online whenever Brady Kurtz has any 6 or 7 year old Brady Kurtz eating an ice cream, and he's wearing all his speedway gear, motocross gear, I think, and he's sat in a little camp chair. And Todd Kurtz, his brother, has photoshopped the young Brady Kurtz sitting on the podium next to the current Brady Kurtz and saying, keep going, fella, kind of thing. So it's a nice little moment, but that's where they've come from, riding since 7 years old, and for the three of them to be there, one of them now leading the World Championship, it's it shows for Australian Speedway that the progression in their system's certainly working, isn't it?
Yeah, they're producing riders, and they've got a group of kids that have come through. And Max Frick actually sort of nodded to it as well, the fact that it was, a special moment for the three of them, because they've been racing against each other since they were children. And, they've grown up together racing against each other. And now on the biggest stage, for them to be standing on the rostrum, I think it was a special moment for all of them. So, yeah, he did give a nod towards that. But, yeah, it's... as I say, the first night was wonderful night, Friday night. It was some brilliant speedway once again. You saw one or two riders struggling a little bit again, which is concerning. I think Brannan, having had a great start on Friday afternoon, found it really tough going. I think he gets frustrated quite quickly, young Tom, which is something he's going to have to learn to deal with. But it is a massive step up, as it is for Nazar Panitsky, the under-21 world champion. He's finding it difficult. And there are some riders that were in great form last year that aren't this year, simply aren't. Like Dudek is one in particular that just doesn't seem to be able to sort of really click. And we're rapidly approaching the midway point. In 2 weeks' time we go to Wrocław, or under 2 weeks' time now, and that'll be round 5. And to me, you're on the back foot if you haven't got going. So but what I would say is, and I think I'll say this after we've spoken about both Grand Prix, but fantastic night for Australia, reasonable night for Lambert, didn't quite make the final, finished 5th on Friday night. I think, I said on commentary that was picked up on that he had the weight of a nation on his shoulders. He kind of did, really, with no Bewley there. He was the focus of attention. He sort of shrugged that off, but you can't deny the fact that he was the highest profile British rider on show, and he would have loved to have been on the rostrum, I'm sure, but it didn't quite manifest itself. But he put in a decent showing. But overall, the racing itself, as an overview for the neutral, I don't think you could be unimpressed. I think you'd have to be royally entertained by what went on.
It was, some of the racing was absolutely sensational. There's no getting around that. I've seen someone commenting, you're never going to please all the people, but I saw someone commenting saying there was hardly any passing in night 1. It's like, I think you must have had the wrong channel on, because there definitely was. I was surprised, actually, with the reaction regarding Robert Lambert. He being the only British representative, obviously a lot of Bewley fans there, but it was muted, Kelvin. I was surprised that, you're on the mic trying to G people up for when Robert Lambert's out, either for the qualifying. Obviously, there was a much lesser crowd there for that. But come the main meeting, he's out and he's getting a win and stuff. And you didn't get the reaction back that you like. So when Dudek wins a heat, Smarslick wins a heat, Tom Brennan, actually, I would say, had the more vocal support on the Friday night, certainly. It just seems that I don't know, that maybe it was just because there was a lot of Bewley fans in there, but he didn't really have that overwhelming home support that you would expect for your home GP. And that was one thing I was very, very surprised at.
Yes.
Is it maybe because he doesn't ride here and he doesn't have so much?
Yes, I think that is true. I would agree with that. I was just about to say that. He doesn't ride in the UK. He's said one or two fairly outspoken. He's been quite outspoken about British Speedway. I think so. That hasn't endeared himself to the British public. You're right about the fact that he's at the home of Dan Bewley. There was obviously a lot of disappointment, inevitably, for everybody that Bewley wasn't being able to race. He was a huge miss. But for Robert, I think the only way he's going to turn those people around, he's got to win. He's got a lot of pressure. He's going to have to win. Even seconds and thirds, it's not going to be enough. For Robert to really endear himself to the British crowd, he's going to have to win. I think he's going to have to show a side to himself that, to me, he really does feel it. His heart's in it. Because there's a sense, I think, he's a bit distant and has turned almost like, I think a lot of people will look like, potentially he's turned his back on British Speedway because he chooses not to ride here, which I think people sort of look as that he's rejected British Speedway. I think that I can kind of understand that, because I did that in my career. I rode for a bit where I didn't ride in the UK, and people don't like it. People don't like it. They sort of like take offence to it. But he is a fantastic rider. I just think that he just needs to find a bit more consistency. After riding so well in Landshut, he hasn't quite reproduced that. Certainly in Prague, it was a poor night, really poor night. And then I'm sure he would love to have made a final, but he didn't quite do it. But you're right. There needs to be some way of him doing a bit of a PR exercise to sort of re-engage with the British public, because it'll make his life easier. It's got to be better when you walk into the paddock and people are excited to see you, want your autograph. When you go out in a race, they're blowing their air horns and cheering for you. When they come out and they're not that fussed, that indifference, I'd be worried about that.
It was really only a section of Kings Lynn fans that were making any kind of noise, really. And it was interesting that even with the Polish riders, that Zmarzlik, he had a good amount of support, but actually the more vocal support was the Dudek fans and the Vorina fans.
Yes.
They were, and they actually, and there was something said that when Zmarzlik crashed in the final, that how disgusting it was that the fans were cheering that he'd crashed. But a lot of the cheering from my angle came from the Polish sections, and these were the fans of Bydgoszcz or anybody, Wrocław, or anybody who's not a Lublin fan, basically, or a Gorzów fan. For them, it was like they've got their man in the race, and it was actually a lot of the vocal support and the cheering and jeering when Zmarzlik crashed came from rival Polish fans. So there's that angle too.
Yeah, and I understand why, because he's been so successful and everybody wants to see him beat. That's just normal human reaction. And it appears that, other Polish fans are in the same mind. You talk to the Polish press, I talk to the other boys that do the commentary. They are kind of like wanting a new hero now, because it's been going on and on and on, the Bartosz. And one of the weaknesses, I would say the only weakness I see in Bartosz Zmarzlik, is the fact that he doesn't speak very well. Publicly speaking, whether it's in Polish or English, I don't think he really enjoys that. But you can't help but admire the man, and he could still win his 7th World Championship this year. It's not over, far from it. We've got 3 rounds to come in Poland, and who knows, in the next 6 rounds it all could change again. But I think from everybody's perspective, and I think from Bartosz's perspective, he will become an absolute national hero again across the board if he loses this year, and then he's on the comeback trail in 2027. It's almost like he needs to do that, and we need to have a new face on leading, or the number 1 rider in the world. But yeah, it's just part and parcel of it. Tony Ricardson got it. Ivan Majors certainly got it. When these guys keep coming back year after year and dominating the sport, you look at Michael Schumacher in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton. When they continually win, people get fed up with it. They want a change. So he's in that bracket, but I don't think he goes to bed at night and worries about that too much. I think if he can win 7 this year, 7 World Championships this year, you can see how hard he's trying. We're sort of nitpicking. He still made 4 finals this year.
Yeah,
pretty decent.
And 4 winners as well. We'll move on to the next round now. But, there is that variety in there. They wanted the gold race jacket to be moving here, there and everywhere throughout, and that certainly seems to be the case. And it's keeping it interesting in the early stages. But he's there or thereabouts every time, though, Zmarzlik, isn't he? Making these finals, as is Brady Kurtz. But, whatever, as you said last time, whatever he's making the finals, he's going to be there come the reckoning.
He is, because he's not losing any ground. That's the thing. Like Kurtz, Kurtz obviously after an indifferent first round has bounced back with 2 seconds and a win. He's got to be that good. That's the deal. Like we saw last year, he had to keep winning because Zmarzlik wasn't having a really poor meeting. And that is his strength. That's Bartosz's strength, even though he wasn't quite at his best. Particularly on Saturday, there's no doubt that he has the strength of character and mind to make sure he gets through. Other riders you see slip away when they're under that much pressure. They just don't do it. They have a poor meeting. Whereas he goes through the LCQ and manages. In actual fact, his LCQ race was the first time he really looked good, and he somehow finds it within himself to do that, and that's what's going to make the championship. He's not going to hand it. He's not going to give it away.
Well, the following night, then on the Saturday night, as we mentioned, he made the final, and we also had a couple of other sort of stars of the show, really, and Michael Jepsen Jensen. We'll hear in a moment from Michael Jepsen Jensen, actually, because he, by his own admission, his form overall this season hasn't been that great. He feels, as you'll hear in a moment, that he's maybe not quite at his best. But he says at the same time, though, I'm making finals in the Grand Prix, and I feel that I've got the potential to win a round. And So it can't all be that bad.
No, and Michael Jepsen Jensen is a rider that is rejuvenated. He's back in the big time. He's a complex character. When you talk to him, he is quite a complex character. He's a bit quirky. He rides differently from a lot of other people. He has a very particular type of style, but he is top quality. I think sometimes the expectation after a really good season last year and then coming into the Grand Prix full time, it takes a bit of just coming to terms with again, because you're all of a sudden in it. It isn't just a free hit anymore. It isn't. You've done it. You've got there. But now the work starts. You know what I mean? He's worked extremely hard to get back into the Grand Prix series. But then what you have to come to terms with is that having done all that hard work, it effectively starts all again. But he rode fantastic on... he looked pretty good on Friday night. I think he made a couple of mistakes, actually, wrong choices in races. But on Saturday night, he was outstanding. And he made some choices, and particularly with his tactical awareness on the track, was terrific. He was able to utilise the inside line better than everybody else. And he was very competitive. And, as it turned out, he top scored after the qualifying races and had the first pick for the final. But, Michael Jepsen Jensen is looking good. And I think after a desperate opening round, when you consider that he only scored 2 points. I think he finished in 15th place because Leon Madsen finished 16th. That is a very good comeback. Very good comeback. And it needed to be, because as I say, we're only a few days away from starting getting to the midway point.
Well, after night 2 in Manchester, I managed to grab a chat with Michael Jepsen Jensen. He does swear a bit, but he's a speedway rider. What do you expect? Here he is.
Yeah, as I said before, I haven't been comfortable. I feel like I've been struggling, and with that, even like in the Polish league and stuff like this, I haven't felt good like any of the meetings, to be fair. So with that in mind, I cannot complain. Yeah. As I just realized when I spoke to the other guy with Voyance last year, I was 5th yesterday. Landshut did shit, but I've been in 3 finals in 5 GPs. So being back here, looking at the big picture, without feeling good, feeling comfortable, I cannot complain.
I know you said that you haven't seen it back yet, but that is going to go down as one of the great finals of all time, I think. What was it like to be in?
I was hectic, but no, it was nice. I felt good, and I think I should have had it, but it's tough. To be honest, I was a little bit with that start, I was a little bit in the first corner fuck, because the start was too good, yeah? And with the start being this good, I opened up all the lines for the rest of the guys, so I knew that would probably bite me in the ass. It did a little bit, but I still managed to be in the front and in the battle, and I think the only mess up was I didn't really get the push out of the 4th bend on the first lap, and that's when they came close. If I would have got the push on the dirt line, I would have had it. But no, this is what we're here for. We want to create good racing, and and this is what we live for. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but no, I'm so disappointed, which is good, yeah.
So Michael Jepsen Jensen there making no bones about the fact that, well, he feels he could have won it, and the fact that he had too good a start and felt this is going too well, and something's going to come back and bite me in the backside here, and it did, but still a second place on the night.
It was, and that is the beauty of the National Speedway Stadium. You're just not safe, you know what I mean, because there's so many racing lines. Why other countries and other federations aren't looking at what they witnessed there? This is now been. It wasn't a flash in the pan what we saw last year in Bellevue. It was replicated over 2 nights again in 26, and arguably the best speedway you'll see anywhere in the world. And there's grip on the track. There's room, there's banking, you know what I mean? If you could have more of that, I would argue that the sport will grow. I know that there's all other factors that you need to bring to the table with social media and how it looks and how it's portrayed. But bottom line is, people fall in love with wonderful racing, really exciting racing, and that's what we saw again over the 2 nights. And yeah, it was good. Just a quick word on Casper Verina, as I was told in no uncertain terms. What a couple of days he had, to mean.
He's loose, isn't he? But he's entertaining.
Yeah, he is. And he beat Brady Kurtz in a real tussle in his first ride on Friday, where he just refused to be passed. Simple as that. But then struggled, then got desperate, and had a heart. It could have been quite severe, that crash with Madsen late on. I think it was heat 18 or 19.
I think it's 18.
Yeah, 18. And it was just too much. It was coming, you know what I mean? You could see he was starting to push the boundaries too far. But again, you can't be too critical. I know it's wild and people don't like it and all the rest of it, but I would suggest that I would rather a rider turn up and be really committed, not throwing the towel in, not shaking his head when things aren't going well. I think he will endear himself to the public worldwide in Speedway, because he comes in and he interviews brilliantly. I mean, he really does interview brilliantly, and he rides with his heart on the sleeve, absolutely, totally committed. If he stays healthy, stays out of trouble, then I really hope he makes the top 7. I really do, because I'd want him back. I definitely want him back.
Yeah, he is entertaining, and I'm not sure how all of the riders deal with that necessarily. But as you say, he's hanging off the bike,
he won't be making lots of friends.
No.
Because they'll look. Because if I was racing against him, you'd be very wary, because he's unpredictable and he might do something that might collect. Well, we saw that he was desperate and he took out Madsen, but. I just think, from a point of view of the product and the fact that he rides in a way that is a bit loose and a bit gets you on the edge of your seat, what's not to like about that? And as I say, my only fear is that if he just pushes it too much and gets hurt, but let's hope he doesn't.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's look at the final then, because what a terrific final that was. Won, of course, by Brady Kurtz. But I tell you what, after the first lap of that, Smarslick's away, looking cool out front. Kurtz is in 4th place. You don't tend to see Bartosz Smarslick get passed by anybody in a final when he's already stretching his legs out front, let alone the guy at the back. But that's what Brady Kurtz did, and it means that Brady Kurtz ended up taking 39 points out of a possible 44 over the course of the weekend. Could have been more as well had he not broke the tapes in that sprint as well. So terrific weekend for Brady Kurtz, but what a race. You've seen a lot of GP finals. That's surely that's got to be up there, hasn't it?
It is, yes, definitely in the top 3. No question, definitely in the top 3, because the way he did it, and I'm going to temper it with you, because there will be a certain clique of people that will mention this, but the way he rode on Saturday throughout was Brady Kurtz of 2025, more relaxed, more confident, tight on the bike on Friday, but still managed to get a great result. More relaxed on the bike, in harmony with it all throughout the evening, despite the fact that Yankovic made him really work very hard in the end of the qualifiers. The ride in the final was just the sort of ride that would suggest that he can win the World Championship. He must really gain a lot of belief that he can do that, because that was an outstanding ride. You run out of adjectives, to be honest, to wax lyrical about it. But it was a wonderful ride. And the fact is that you then put it into context about the 6-time world champion was leading, as you rightly say, rarely gets beaten from there. You've got Jepsen Jensen, who's riding out of his skin. Holt, who's had an incredible weekend. That was a very special final. And for Kurtz now, going forward, I think that he'll have the bit between his teeth. He had a difficult start. Again, this is to his credit. He's had a difficult start. He had illness. He's had probably some set-up issues, probably in himself, maybe a bit tight, a little bit nervy. But all of a sudden, you saw the Kurtz that we saw in 25 back on Saturday night, and yeah, he's going to be a hard man to shift, and he will now wear the gold race jacket going forward. So pretty cool.
Yeah, well, let's hear from him. I managed to grab a chat with Brady Kurtz after night 2. After he was about to get reintroduced to his mum and dad, and I stood in the way of that reunion to get this chat first. Here is Brady Kurtz speaking after taking the top step in Manchester and the lead in the World Championship.
Yeah, my honest answer is I got no idea what happened. There was people going everywhere, and I was looking left and looking right, and I didn't know where to go and what decision to make. And I just seen a gap open, and once I hit the front, I knew if I could get to the outside, I knew I was the fastest guy. I just had to actually get there, and once I hit the front, thought we were solid. So super happy with it.
You had the better of the gate picks, I think, as well, and obviously it left Bartek with the white gate, which was probably not the best at the time, but nonetheless he made something out of it at the start, and it was sort of reining him in. And how are conditions generally, because obviously a bit of a difference in the track, I think, between last night and tonight, the first night and the second night?
We were actually laughing on the podium that we actually thought gate 3 was the gate to have after the final, because considering Doyley made a great start in the LCQ, and Bartek said when he got to gate 3 he thought it looked much better than it had previously, but I can't remember what the question was now.
Well, just the difference between last night and tonight.
I think it was quite similar, to be fair. I don't think there was a whole lot of changing. The race line was pretty similar. Maybe it was a little bit grippier considering we didn't have practice earlier in the day. That kind of makes the track a bit shitty generally, but no, I think it was as similar as it could have been.
Congrats on the win, but also the golden race jacket is yours as well, heading into Wrocław, your home track in Poland as well, so an opportunity there maybe.
Yeah,
you don't want to let it go now?
No, I don't want to let it go, but I'd like to have it at the end rather than now, so I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm expecting Bartek to put up a hell of a fight in the next coming round, so I'm going to have to stay on my game, just keep doing my thing, keep sticking it in them finals, and we'll see how we go for the end of the year. Still a long way to go.
You seem to be taking it to Bartek more so even than last season. That I think you see some riders, even in the GPs the last couple of days, they know he's coming and they kind of expect him to come round, whereas you can see you standing your ground.
Oh, I think you have to. There's only one way to beat him. You've got to show him that you mean business, and I'm sure he feels the same towards everyone else. And he's a tough but fair competitor, and I think we actually have a lot of good races together. And there's only one way to beat him.
Awesome weekend for Australian Speedway as well, and for you as well personally. Your family were here watching on. They were sat a couple of rows in front of me, and they've got the Australian flags up and everything. And so for you personally, a proud weekend ending like this.
Absolutely. Yesterday would have had to have been the best GP ever for Australian Speedway. So that was pretty cool for us three to stand up there, all being exactly the same age, and we've stood on podiums together since we were 9. I'd hate to think how many, and it was cool. Also, even today, 2 more Aussies in the final. It's been a good weekend for us.
So Brady Kurtz there saying, well, it's all well and good having the golden race jacket at this point, but I'd rather have it in Torren, and that's where he's got to remain focused on, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. To me, he's not going to get ahead of himself. He's a mature kid. He's been through the whole process once already, where he pushed Mr. Smarslick very hard indeed. In fact, he couldn't have pushed anybody any harder last year. It was just the sheer consistency of Smarslick and Smarslick's early season form in 25 that finally actually just got him over the line. One hiccup for Kurtz in 25 that ultimately cost him. And that is the pressure that comes with the job, with a rider like Bartosz Smarslick kicking around. But what I would say is that there will be people saying that 30% of the series is staged at tracks where he rides. I'll just let that sink in. 30% of the series is staged at tracks where he rides. And people will say that's not right. There's nothing he can do about that. That's not his choice. He doesn't form the calendar. And what I would say to counteract that, and he was very cute in the way he answered the question about it, was the fact that sometimes that puts more pressure on you when you're riding in front of your home crowd, because they expect you to do very well, and they will in Wrocław. that he deals with that. There's no doubt that, yes, you feel familiar, yes, you're comfortable in the surroundings, you know where you're staying and all the rest of it, which can help. But I always found, like when I was riding for the Coventry Bees and the British final was always staged at my home track, it wasn't easy. It was, people just expected you to win it. And that brings its own pressure. So that would be, I think he carries himself very well, and he will be, I'm sure he'll be very focused for the upcoming Grand Prix. But with 3 rounds in Poland to come, this championship is going to be, I think it's going to be really nail-biting again. Really is.
Well, talk about the upcoming fixtures. Just talk about Schmarslik. I didn't manage to get a direct interview with Bartek. He gave me the slip while I was interviewing Jepsen Jensen, and he got around me, which, you know, he didn't manage that with everybody this weekend. But we did get him in the main press conference. I'll play a clip of it. I'll have to chuck the levels up because he's quite quietly spoken, is Bartek. But talking really about probably the after effects of that crash on Friday and how that might have affected Saturday.
Bartek, congratulations. Another final, another podium. You really, really earned this one tonight. This was not an easy night for you. Talk me through your evening.
And very tough tonight for me, and I'm happy again because I'll be again in the final in the planning the makeup. And congrats for the boys. He make it there better work than me. And the final, and I think so together make it the good show for the people in the final, because everyone possible to win today, but probably being the smart in the final. And I'm also happy because after yesterday I feel good, but not like the 100% after crash, and make it the podium good.
Yeah, it was a big crash you had in the final yesterday. How are you feeling now, and how much of an impact did it have on you tonight?
I'm feeling like the after crash is nothing special, but I'm feeling, left place under my body, and maybe this instinct for in the final after 2 laps, the going to the line more safe and comfort, because I don't too much, power on the left hand, and yes, but of course the boys then make it better.
You seem to get better as the night went on. Did you change anything? Did you do anything differently as the meeting progressed?
For me, it's the 2 completely different days. I knew that today is a different bike than the yesterday, but yesterday I'm start making really fast. But today start making since I'm very slow. The one I change the bike, I'm again come back to the bike at the night, and yes, that's how it is. And let's go, we go.
And next up, Wrocław, a meeting in front of the Polish fans, the first Polish round of the season. Are you looking forward to getting back there and hopefully regaining your lead, possibly?
Yes, again going to the home, Brady. And yeah, I think so. Everyone make it the good speedway. This is the most important.
Schmarslik then gracious in defeat and applauding Brady Kurtz and acknowledging that it is going to be probably a battle once again between the two, but also pointing out that maybe he was feeling a bit second-hand after that crash. It was a fairly heavy off on the Friday night into the fence. Nonetheless, he bounces well, doesn't he? Because he got back up and was back on the bike, but obviously he was feeling some pain there in his left-hand side, he was saying.
Yes, I'm sure he was, because, when you fall off and you land heavily with the bike like he did, to me, you're going to feel the effects of that that knock the following day. You haven't got any time to really recover from it. But I don't think I would necessarily suggest that created his tough night. He was struggling for speed. Whether that was creating the problem, I know that he was working hard with his team throughout the evening to try and turn that around. But he led the final, and he was just beaten by a better rider on the night, in truth. But I think probably what would be more concerning for him, I'm not sure I believe too much about the fact. He doesn't crash very often, despite the fact the way he rides. He doesn't crash very often, and maybe it's a bit of a shock. And he's had a nasty crash at Bellevue before when he got hit in the Speedway of Nations, and he actually was concussed that night. But I think what's more of a concern for him, he hasn't won a Grand Prix for a year. And he must be beginning to sort of scratch his head, thinking, well, what have I actually got to do to win a Grand Prix again? Admittedly, he keeps making finals. He's made, as far as, if my memory is correct, he's made the last 9 finals, which is fantastic. But, and he's definitely made the first 4 this year, he can't seem to win one. I think he took the wrong gate in Prague, gate 2, and handed the victory to Madsen. I'm not sure he took the right gate again on Saturday night when Friday night when it rained. I think he may have just panicked a wee bit, and because it was always going to be difficult to get round that. I actually said on commentary, he could run into traffic. And guess what? Because it's a shorter distance, and they're only going for one bit of track right on the outside, and Frick did the business and got there first. But look, I think if he were to win in Wrocław, then all of a sudden, I think it will be quite a shootout. But I'm excited about it. I'd like to think that we could get a new winner this year in Brady Kurtz, but it's not a done deal yet. No way.
Well, let's have a look at the standings then, because there is a bit of a 3-horse race opening up in the title standings now. So Brady Kurtz leads the way. He's first, 65 points. 3 points behind is Bartosz Szmartlik, so there's a lot of speedway to be ridden yet. He's in second place right now, and third is Jack Holder on 55 points. So those are the sort of 3 front runners at this moment. And then making up the pack, considering what we were saying about how he had a terrible GP first time out, currently 4th in the standings is Michael Jepsen Jensen, who's thrown himself right in the mix on 45 points, so 20 behind Brady Kurtz, but with the amount of GPs left, not out of the running, certainly not out of the running for a podium place. Kasper Vorina is in 5th. 1 point behind Jepsen Jensen. It's all tight, this next sort of band for the top 7. Max Frick then moves up to 6th place now as a result, I think from 14th going into the weekend. He's on 42 points, the same as Robert Lambert, who's on on 42 in 7th place. And then there's a few points down to Jason Doyle in 8th on 37, 35 Leon Madsen, 29 Patrick Dudek, Andrei Lebedev's 23 in 11th. So getting into that top 7, which is the qualifying spots for next year, 42 is the mark at the moment. Jason Doyle just outside that, so ground to make up there. But very tight indeed among that top 7 beyond that.
And it's changed drastically from the beginning of the Grand Prix campaign. You look at Max Frick, like you say, a win and a 5th, I think. Yes, a win and a 5th. Certainly has turned his fortunes around massively. He's put himself into a position where he'll be a Grand Prix rider next year. Interesting how Robert Lambert and Frick are battling for that again. They were last year for that last position. It looks like the same. Doyle was quiet. To me, Doyley's been going along okay. But he is on the cusp of being a Grand Prix rider for next year. He just needs, don't know quite what he needs, but he just needs to keep hanging in there, and he might just do it. But as I say, I think there are some riders that are disappointing so far this year. I think in particular Patrick Dudek, who I thought was going to be a real strong contender this year. We haven't seen that yet. Andrei Lebedev's another one who looked really uncomfortable riding in England. He did last year and just didn't get it. Again, he was trying, but you can see he's not in love with it. He was really forcing himself. That's a mental thing. It really has to be. Because that track in Bellevue, there's no reason to be concerned about it. It's not unpredictable. To me, it's a great track to ride. Yeah. I thought Jan Kovac did really good, actually, as an injury replacement. I thought he did himself a lot of good, particularly on Saturday. But, like Leon Madsen, Patrick Dudek, Andrei Lebedev's, all top quality riders that have got a lot of hard yards to do. They really have. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond over the upcoming races. And maybe conditions and tracks will come to them. Certainly, those guys could be they'll definitely be more comfortable when they go to Polish tracks. Definitely.
And Anders Thompson as well, an injury replacement, and he had a good night on Friday. I think he was like the joint leader going into the last block of heats, I think, as well, wasn't he, into the semi-finals? And he made a really good account of himself given the opportunity that came his way.
Yeah, Anders is, he didn't do particularly well last year in Bellevue. He rode really well. Surprised me actually how well he went, because he got stuck in and started strongly. He just faded away a touch towards the end. I think a lot of riders were concerned about the forecast for Saturday. He certainly was, because he mentioned it in an interview. I think he did himself proud. Whether Anders Thompson is going to get himself right back up towards the pointy end of the World Championship again, that's debatable. I really do. I think it's debatable. I think the one that I look at, and we've already spoken about him, I think the one that's really got his bit between his teeth to really make an impact and could be a top three, could get a medal this year, is Jepsen Jensen.
Yeah, well, we said at the start of the season as well, didn't we, that Michael Jepsen Jensen, we looked at the odds for the World Championship winner, and outside the obvious options,
it's him.
Jepsen Jensen was up there with the bookies, so maybe they knew something.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he's quality. He rode, you know what I mean? The fact is that it's not like he hasn't done it. He's won Grand Prix, he's won World Cups. He has ridden at that level. Why he then disappeared off the international scene, I'm not entirely sure. And for a while, for 10 years, really, 10 years away. Now, as a much more mature guy, he rides really very well indeed. And as I say, he has his own unique style. He has his own way of going about things. He doesn't quite think, and a bike setup in particular is quite often very different from a lot of other guys. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if he at least wins a Grand Prix. And I reckon Denmark, if they really get their act together, I know they've got to qualify, but I feel confident they will do. I think Denmark will be a shout for the Speedway World Cup.
They could well be.
Oh, they've got a good team.
They've got it going, haven't they?
Good team. Yeah, they've got Mikkelsen and Anders Thompson with Magnussen and Jepsen Jensen, maybe Bastian Pedersen as the fifth rider. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. But that is, if they put their best foot forward and they ride as individuals in that meeting, they might just be in with a shout. And Nicky Pedersen firing them up, that could be quite interesting to see how they go.
Certainly could be. So the next up for the Speedway Grand Prix Series is Wroclaw, which is next weekend at the time of recording this. And yeah, obviously it would have been the home track of Dan Bewley as well, but obviously he's still on the sidelines, although he is pulling wheelies in a wheelchair, which was pretty impressive. I don't know if you've seen that video on social media.
Concerning. He's bored. He's definitely bored. He'll be strapping some sort of electrical motor to it in a minute. He'll be doing some sort of burnout drag racing outside the front of the hospital or the rehab centre any minute. He's quite a guy, but I doubt there's not many days when he's fit that he just sits around doing very little. He's normally out doing something, but. He looked like he was in good spirits, but I saw, like most people, he's posted all the pictures of the surgery and the injury. That's nasty. It's nasty. Broken high up, and the pin, and he's going to have to let that knit together. He's going to have to. It's his left leg, which is good in respect that you don't have to stand on it when you go through the corners, but yeah, you'd want to make sure that that's beginning to really knit together and everything's settling down.
Especially having already, previous work done as well too. So it's he's obviously had a big leg break in the past. Yeah,
he can't come back too quickly because there's no pressure on him for the point of view of the future. To mean that he will definitely be included in next year's Grand Prix, come what may. He'll be in, and I'd like to think that somebody will tell him that. I really do hope so, that they can just have a word in his ear that, look, don't rush. Even
Yeah.
if they don't actually say it in so many words, do not rush. Because the last thing you want, a rider of that ability feeling that he has to come back to secure his future. You don't want that. He's just too good. And as I say, he is sorely missed. But I've actually had that injury that he had. It looked very similar to the pictures that I had back in the day. And I did ride with it. It was my left leg. So I did go ahead and ride with it, with the metalwork in it. And it took me a good couple of months before I felt ready to ride. I did ride again in 2 months after having it's called a Kunstner nail that goes down inside the femur. So yeah, let's see how he gets on. But I reckon he would love to ride in the Speedway World Cup final. I reckon he'd like to do that.
I think as beyond that, though, he's got a vertebrae injury as well, hasn't he? I think to a compressed vertebrae also. So it's not just the leg. I think there's other things as well to take into account. But as Mark Lemon said on the previous episode, obviously Bewley is looking to get back as soon as possible. But I think that Speedway World Cup might be realistic, though. And he has obviously said that's a fixture he would definitely like to ride in. So I think
we'll wait and see, Ian. We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
You know, but as I say, my feeling is over and above everything else is the fact that I'd like to think mentally, as much as you want to get back, that's a racer's mentality. You want to get back as quickly as possible. I do hope it's for the right reasons. It's not because, and he's a pretty cool character. He's pretty level-headed. I believe that, I'm sure he doesn't feel too much pressure, but he could do and then ride a little early because of it. But we wait and see.
Since we last spoke as well, the qualifying rounds have completed for the Grand Prix Challenge for a place in the series next year. 4 places up for grabs through the Grand Prix Challenge, which is taking place in Italy at Terenzano later this year. And we know the riders' names now. So Luke Becker, Kim Nielsen, Rowan Tungate, Keenan Rue and Dominic Cabrera all qualified from Abensberg. Arbensberg. You keep me right.
Yes.
Now in Slovakia, Zarnovica?
Yeah.
Robert Lambert.
Yeah, go on. Yeah,
Robert
Lambert
got through. He won it. Jamin Lidsey, Andre Lebedevs, Kasper Vorina and Michael Jepsen Jensen all qualified from there. That's a tasty old qualifier, that, isn't it?
It was, yeah.
You know, tough top 5 there. And from the round, oh, hang on, where am I? We need the Glasgow round. I've lost the Glasgow round.
That was Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg cleaned up.
Hülkenberg cleaned up. Right, let me find the Glasgow round.
Yeah, 15-point max. The Holder got through. Chris Harris got through. I mean, Harris for the Grand Prix in 27. It's nailed on. It's absolutely nailed on. The man in his early 40s, he still rides like a teenager. He'll be he could do it too in Terenzano. If it rains in Terenzano and have a massive thunderstorm on, I think it's July the 25th or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the GP Challenge in Terenzano. I mean, what a night that would be.
Yeah, he had a run-off with Janowski to qualify. And so he actually knocks Magic Janowski out. So Bommer is there. Frederick Jakobsen and Anders Rowe are the other two from Glasgow.
What a night for Anders Rowe.
Yeah, big opportunity.
What a night for Anders Rowe.
And so that's the 15. There will be a wild card, an Italian wild card for Terenzano, yet to be revealed.
Well, there's only one man for that job, Ian. There's only one man for that job. And Paco Castagna, who is the man. And he will be so excited about doing it if it is him. I do hope it's him. Because, like, in his homeland, a track you'll know very well, it's an unusual track, Terenzano. It's a very big track. It's flat. The surface is unusual. It'll be absolutely stinking red hot in July. It could easily be 40 degrees. Conditions will be challenging, and you could see some surprise results there. You really could. And Paco, I think the only thing that could get the better of him is himself. He could just get a little bit too excited. But to hear who is the announced wild card. But he must be in with a shout for it.
It's got to be, hasn't it? But Terenzano, he's won numerous Italian championships there. And I think of all the tracks, and there's not that many tracks in Italy anyway.
No.
But Terenzano is, I believe, his local track. It's sort of in northern Italy, isn't it? And
he lives near Lonigo and Terenzano. They're sort of equidistant between each other. There's another one called Badia Calabino, which is a private track, but they don't really race there anymore. But Terenzano is close by to him.
So if he's ever going to do it, it's got to be this time, hasn't it? If he's ever going to do it, but I think to make the top four, it's not all about just winning. I think to make the top four, I think he's got a pretty decent chance. I think, as I say, the going's never going to be better for Paco to have a go at this if he is the wild card indeed.
Sure. Well, it's over 20 heats. It's the old format, so 12 points, I think, probably gets you in.
Yeah,
12. You'd say 12?
Yeah, certainly. I would have thought usually around about that, 12 or so. Depends, doesn't it? But
it's a big meeting, and it's a meeting that television have never covered, which I've always found difficult to understand. It's because it's the first qualifiers for next year's series, and it's absolutely integral to Grand Prix, the Grand Prix Challenge. But it's not on. I presume FIM TV do it.
Yes, it's on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be on there, but no, a big meeting coming up in July. Obviously, we've got a couple of Grand Prix prior to that, but it'll be interesting. And that one from Slovakia, the qualifiers there, it's going to make the result in Terenzano very interesting, because people like Jack Holder, Michael Japsen Jensen, just to name two, you'd got to believe that they're going to be in the top seven. So they could very well have guaranteed their Grand Prix status by the Grand Prix results, where that means that riders finishing outside the top four are going to be promoted in. So therefore, you don't necessarily, actually thinking about it now, 12 probably does guarantee you a spot in the top four, but you might get in on 9.
Yeah, finishing 5th, 6th, 7th even, yeah.
And so, therefore, it does kind of open it up in that regard, because you've got Verina, Lebedevs, Holder, Robert Lambert. I mean, there's some big hitters, Jack Holder, that are going through the qualifying system. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and it does bode well with that in mind. It does therefore bode well that we will see some, a good amount of new names coming in, and there is some good talent outside there as well, who maybe aren't in the Grand Prix at the moment. Like Luke Becker, I think that would be massive if he could qualify. He's been going pretty well. For America to have a GP rider once again, for example, being one casing point, it'd be great to see him back.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. He's somebody that I've overlooked. And Becker, another nation, and a nation that's been a powerhouse in the past. It's been slim pickings for them since the retirement of Greg Hancock. So Luke Becker, if he could make his way through, that would be, I think, everybody, particularly organisers, would be very pleased with that. So yeah, we wait and see. But it's an interesting and an exciting prospect, and as is the championship overall. And I can only think as an overview of the 2 nights in Manchester, healthy crowds, weather behaved itself, the racing was of an extraordinarily high standard, and I think it was a very good advert for World Championship Speedway. I can't think that you could see it any other way.
No, it was a terrific event all round, and obviously people will have their thoughts about how things could be improved for the next year, but I think there was definitely, you could see there were definite improvements on things from the first year that Mark Lemon was talking about, extra food and easier access. Didn't seem to be any problems with people getting in and out of the stadium, for example. And I know some people said that there were problems with the sound system, but at the same time, I've heard from people who were in also the same stand saying that it was good. So maybe it was just that particular area of the stand or whatever. I don't think it was universal, that problem. But look, there is always going to be something that can be improved. But I thought it was a fantastic event, and we know definitely there'll be at least one Grand Prix. Will it be 2 days? I think Manchester have made a firm case that they can deliver great events, 2 events back to back with great racing. And I know, looking online at the feedback that, you know, even some Polish commentators and so on are putting online and saying, I saw one commentator say that how do you revitalise the Grand Prix series? Just give Manchester 12 rounds. So that's coming from the Poles.
Yeah.
So
and therein lies the rub, because I look at Extraliga, what they do with the track and the template they roll out for that. It is so far away from what they get served up in Manchester, and therefore you're witnessing some speedway that, you know, for example, for British Speedway, if you could have, you know, 10 tracks like Manchester dotted around the country, the sport would be much healthier. It would fast track the interest, because the level of excitement that's generated by the racing. Look at the British final. British final, with due respect to the British final, it isn't the lineup it once was. And the bottom line is that the meeting I've been at, I can't remember how many, but the meeting is always exciting. Well, the final in the British final last year was probably arguably the best race I've ever witnessed. Been around a while, so that was extraordinary. Saturday night's final came very close to that, very close. But it isn't a fluke. It isn't a one-trick pony. It isn't a one-hit wonder. It does it every week. You know, they get quite blasé about it up in Manchester, because they witness it quite often. But the fact of the matter is that if you could replicate that type of racing around Europe or around the world with that template, what's not to like about that? That's what I would be looking at. That's what I would be looking at. And I don't know why you wouldn't.
We do have some good tracks, and I think one I don't think it's going to be hosting a GP anytime soon, but I think it could potentially host some FIM events, qualifiers. Workington, the new track there, Steve Lawson has built. It's not quite as long as Bellevue in terms of the overall lap length. It's a bit shorter, about 40 metres shorter, but it's wider than Bellevue. And I think that is probably, and we do see amazing races at Workington. They probably go under the radar because they're not World Championship or Premiership heats, but you know, I would be very interested to see how the world's best, those same riders on Friday or Saturday night, would get on with that same race on there, because they've got actually an extra metre in width at Workington to fling the bike in there, and I think that track would produce sensational racing. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? The space to race.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that Steve Lawson was very mindful of that, because I spoke to him about it on several occasions. But it is something that, with the way that the sport has developed, particularly with the bikes, when you see them racing around some of the older tracks, which are narrower, like the first 2 rounds in Landshut and Prague, there isn't as much racing room, so it's much more difficult then to overtake and have the same level of excitement. So yeah, as I say, it's not an easy problem to fix, because you've got to have. I tell you where, you know, Prague always has the Grand Prix. It always has done, but there is a track in the Czech Republic that was actually born for modern day Grand Prix. Absolutely born for it, and in Pardubice, because they have got all the room in the world, and you would see fabulous racing there. Why it's never gone there, I don't know, but I think it's something that if I was the promoter trying to put bums on seats, I think, you know, when you see what happened in Manchester, I don't think you can overlook that too much. If you could try to go to those type of tracks with the extra racing room, it might make the difference. But as I say, it's not easily achieved. It really isn't.
A bit of technical chat before we finish off, Kel, because people tell us they want to know about this. And this is more of a point, but we can sort of elaborate on it. That Max Frick won the Grand Prix on Friday night. He was riding a Peter Johns engine. Peter Johns, one of the big tuners in Speedway. But it's the first time a PJR engine, or a PJR tuned engine, has won a Grand Prix for 9 years. So Peter Johns there on the top step, and he's been working with Max, and I think on 1 or 2 of the new innovations we were talking about in the engine as well. So, you know, from that point of view, from the technical point of view, The engine, I think, is a GM, but these are tuned by Peter Johns, who's had a lot of success in the past. He certainly worked with Chris Holder, didn't he, in when he was having success, and many others as well. So
he prior to the Kowalski years, was the dominant force. I think he won 5 world championships consecutively. He won with Woofenden, Holder, Hancock, all at sort of between 2012 through to about 15, 16, around there. And then, unfortunately, for whatever reason, a lot of those top riders moved away. Sport changes, circumstances change. But I saw Peter. I've known Peter since we were young. But he was very pleased. Of course, he was very pleased. And winning Grand Prix, when you've got, obviously, Ashley Holloway with Ashtec doing so well with Brady Kurtz and Dan Bewley and lots of others. You've got Kowalski, of course, who is the one, Daniel Kowalski, who is the one that has produced engines for Bartosz Marzlik for a long time and has won, as a consequence, 6 world championships in the last 7 years. In actual fact, he's won the last 7. Sorry, because Artem Laguta was on a Kowalski engine as well. But, you know, for Peter, who is a recognised high-profile, he went through the a lean period. And so, yeah, he was very pleased to have come out the other side. Michael Jepsen-Jensen, another Peter Johns runner as well. And he's going very well. So clearly the engines are running very well.
Yeah, and I think he was talking about that there was some, there was some modifications they've been working on the engine for Max, and so it just shows, doesn't it, that these, whether that was the full reason or not, but it certainly hasn't slowed Max Frick's engine down any. And he was saying though that they're interesting that there was a discussion in the pits whether to continue on that machine or not, and actually it proved to be the right decision to stick with it.
Yes, it's too easy to have a knee-jerk reaction after a poor ride and just say no, and clearly there was some confusion, but there was a voice in the paddock that said no, stay with that one. And as it turned out, Mark Courtney made himself a hero because his decision to stick with the bike was the right one, and clearly, you know, they will be very pleased indeed. But you know, the fine margins with this racing now, they're all GMs. They have been for some considerable time. And the engine tuners are, you know, extremely professional. They do a wonderful job. It does very much, sometimes it's just personalities, working with somebody, the engine tuner, his DNA in the engine suiting your riding style. That is very important. And that's why they move around a bit. But as I say, Peter was delighted. He hasn't won for 9 years, and he's got a rider in Max Frick and probably Michael Jepsen-Jensen that could well win another one. It wouldn't be at all surprising to see Michael Jepsen-Jensen on top of the box. So, you know, he could be in for a really good season.
Yeah, well, he's certainly close, and he feels he should have had that one on Saturday, but didn't quite have it. Max Frick got it on Friday. Brady Kurtz on Saturday, and Brady Kurtz leads the championship heading to Wroclaw. Not all right, lots to talk about from British Speedway, Kelv. It got pretty much rained off all week, so not much has happened, apart from Northampton have won a meeting.
Which is good. Very good. Because they had, it was a huge effort, clearly, to get that club up and running and the Speedway track established, which was credit to all involved. But, you know, then you start losing matches, and that excitement and enthusiasm could wane away. So very pleased to see that they got their first win under their belts. Let's hope this wonderful, they call it Flaming June? I haven't seen a lot of fireworks so far. All I keep seeing is rain and wind. But let's hope the weather starts behaving, because you don't want to get too far behind on the fixtures.
Okay, thanks for joining us then. And Kelvin, we'll catch up, after you've been on a voyage to Wroclaw. And, of course, the first round of the Monster Energy Triple Cushion there across the Polish meetings.
Yes, the 3 Polish GPs, where the Triple Crown for Monster Energy, who have introduced this added prize, they will that will be taken from the points you score in your qualifying races. So the 20 heat format is what to keep an eye on that, and that will just rack up. I think there's also a benefit for fans from the fan zone as well, where they can win prizes and things like that. So it's just another nice little touch from Monster Energy that are back on board big time in 2026, which is great. And, I hope that just brings an added bit of interest and excitement for people alongside the World Championship. So, yeah, interesting just to keep... Well, I'll be keeping a brief on that as well.
Yeah, and it does mean that whatever happens in the world title race, that the last round in Torrance not going to be a total dead duck, even at the worst case scenario, because that Triple Crown's going to go the distance as well, isn't it, to that final round as well.
This is probably famous last words, but I'd be very surprised if the championship's decided before Torrance.
Yeah.
I really do. I'd be surprised, but I think for everybody concerned, it's always best to go to the last round. But no, really enjoyed the weekend, and already, to be honest, Wrocław is another really cool destination. Great town, the Olympic Stadium is pretty special, and it's one of the, as I say, another really good track. Maciej Janowski, the wild card, he's been riding pretty well. I think he'd be somebody to keep an eye on, but I don't know whether Freddie Lindgren will be back. I'm sure he could be back, Lindgren. It will be. Speedway.
We'll look forward to it. We'll probably catch up again after that then in a couple of weeks' time. But thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe to the various platforms that this is on. And we will see you for the next episode very soon.